Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Purposeful Powerhouse podcast. How many versions of you do you think there have been in this lifetime? Hundreds, maybe thousands, right? And if you factor in the many possible lives, if you are in alignment with this belief that your soul has had over the course of your soul's timeline, or maybe the infinite number of yous that could be living on parallel timelines according to quantum physics, there's a potential million, billions, zillions of you in the world. But let's just talk about the you that has inhabited this physical body. But the physical body that you have right now is not the same one you were born in, right? You have re-expressed and realigned and recreated so many of your cells, your trillions of cells over and over and over to become the version of you that you are right now. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we can begin to integrate all of these parts and pieces of ourselves and do so in a way that really celebrates, acknowledges, loves, accepts, and really fully embodies the brilliance that you are and that you bring to the metaphorical table, or maybe the physical table too, right? Of course, in a way that really honors not just the journey that you've been on, because that has allowed you to become the version of you that you are now, but really honors the full expression of yourself by really learning to celebrate yourself for who you are. And as someone who admittedly is still in the process of deeply falling in love with myself and deeply loving and accepting myself, this has been a journey for me, as it is for many people. And it is truly the journey of the yoga practice, right? One of my teachers, Eddie, says that yoga is a journey of self-awareness, of self-acceptance, and ultimately self-love. It's not just standing on one foot, right? Hopefully you've gotten that from now if you've listened to other episodes from me, or maybe you know this of yourself from the yoga practice. But really, the journey of yoga and the journey of life is a practice of self-discovery and self-integration and letting go and learning to witness yourself for the magical creature and being that you are. And so, what inspired this conversation today? Well, if you've been listening to the last few episodes, I had a pretty major flood in my house, and there was a lake of water in every room when I came home, and that was not fun. No, not at all. And as you may or may not know, I live in Maui, and so it's already a tropical climate, so we got to make sure that snippy snappy everything gets dry because mold is a real issue. So luckily, we're only about a week and a half out now, and we are almost everything back together. My house got roasted and toasted like a Hawaiian mac nut, 100 degrees for 5 days, and so everything dried out. And so now there was a minor renovation, I don't know if it's called that, but a fixing up that had to happen in the closet. And so I'm just in the beginning process of putting everything back together in my room. And so when everything kind of exploded into the living room, in the room I'm in, I took the opportunity to begin to go through some things. And as I'm going through this time capsule of all of these beautiful memories, I began to think and revisit all of these versions of me. The version of me that moved to Maui 12 and a half years ago, the version of me that moved to New Zealand with my family when I was 21 years old. We sold everything in our home in Canada and packed up a bunch of stuff, but shipped over 13 suitcases, right? We were allowed to have two each. And for some reason, somebody got an extra one. 13 suitcases got shipped to New Zealand, and they were all wrapped in these, this rainbow tie strap so we could identify the black suitcase as ours. And so I had some of those rainbow tie straps in my closet. And so of course I'm thinking about New Zealand. And so that just all of these different versions of me and these different stations along the road in my timeline. And so it was interesting to me, although not surprising because of the story I'm going to share with you in a minute, but I uncovered a lot of Peacock paraphernalia. And you may or may not know from other previous episodes, I'm actually pretty scared of birds. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's how it ties back into self-love, is that because peacocks are so highly revered in so many different cultures, and especially in Hindu culture, as well as in Buddhist culture, and a lot of different Asian countries, they are very highly revered because they are considered to be a full expression of beauty, because their feathers are absolutely stunning, right? But they're, just like all animals, are a teacher. And so there's an interesting myth that one of my previous clients who I used to work with in British Columbia. See, another version of me. And I used to work with in British Columbia, and we would train outside, as I'm a personal trainer. We would train outside in this beautiful park, and there was peacocks that lived there. And I'm scared of them, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I kept my distance. And so her family was also from India. And she said, "Have you ever heard the legend of the peacock's cry?" And I said, "No, I would love to know the legend." And she said, "Well, here's the legend. Have you ever heard a peacock's cry? You probably have. It's kind of somewhere between like this and a bit of a laughy sort of sound." So the legend is that the peacocks, knowing how beautiful and majestic and elegant and how royal and regal they are, periodically look down at their feet and cry out in disgust. And that's that sound in their cry. But then instantly they remember how beautiful and majestic and sensual they are, and they laugh at themselves. So that's the legend of the cry, is to remind us that within each of us, there's always going to be these things that we perceive to be these faults or these flaws. But it's our work to take a lighthearted perspective and look to remember that at your deepest core and at your truest expression, you are beautiful, you're magical, you're divine, you're perfect in your imperfection. So that's the legend. And so for me, it's been interesting because the peacock then has become very representative of my own journey, because I would find myself constantly fixating on these things that I felt were problems or mistakes or faults or flaws. And only in the last, say, 10 years have I learned to catch myself using the tools of mental fitness to cultivate that level of self-awareness when my mind is making all of these things bad or wrong, and be able to catch myself, pause, do a power pause, and cultivate that self-command, which is one of the muscles of mental fitness, and then be able to come back into my true center, come back into who I am, ground myself back in, and be able to access that deep knowing that it's all part of it. And we get to learn to look at ourselves through the eyes of the heart and through the eyes of love, and learn to see myself from a much bigger perspective. And so that's beautiful, right? From a lesson, from a teaching of the peacock. And so hopefully it'll give you a new respect for them and for their cry. I know my partner Justin, he lives in Kihei, and there's one of his neighbors has 3 peacocks, so we hear them periodically. But let's go a little bit further back than that, because if you remember from previous episodes, or if you don't, I'll catch you up. I'm mildly terrified of birds because when I was 5 years old, my parents took me to go see The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock in 3D, the first time ever. First time seeing a 3D movie. There's birds flying at my face and talons and claws, and I was terrified. So terrified. I was shaking. I was crying. They took me out of the theater. That was it, but it definitely left a mark. And so what happened was I began to fixate on that's on the talons, on the beaks, and only on the things that I was scared about birds. And I saw nothing else about them. I just saw, all I could see, even like little tiny chickadees, little tiny birds that are so light they can even like land on a piece of grass out here in my yard, and they don't even like tilt the grass over. They're so light. And so I was just, that fear, which is real, because when we have these experiences, it creates a neural tag in our nervous system, and so it's very real. And so if you have fears, that's not to discount them at all. But what I began to realize as I began to learn more about myself and witness myself in this pattern is that I was ignoring everything else about the birds. I didn't see their beautiful wings, their feathers. I didn't see the way that they created these beautiful architectural masterpieces with nests. I didn't hear their songs. I mean, of course I could hear them, but I did not give them the due grace and the beautiful respect that they were owed, because I was just like, don't come anywhere near me. I'm terrified of you. Because all I could see was what I perceived to be the fault and the flaws and the thing that was causing me fear. So my question for you is, where in your life are there things about you that you tend to pick and fixate on? What are the beaks and the talons for you? Because I know that there's many versions of you along the way, and you have had experiences, you've made mistakes, you've learned and you've grown. But I want you to begin to acknowledge the ways that you are finding your flight, you're singing your song, you're being able to craft these beautiful masterpieces. And yes, it might be art. That's amazing. Maybe you write a book. Maybe you create amazing websites or social media strategies or whatever it is that you are crafting and creating in your work, and or maybe it's experiences for people, whatever, drinks, I don't know. Where are you able to use all of these different expressions and these tools that you have been given, all of these different parts of you, to be able to share your gifts with the world? And how can you begin to learn to catch yourself when you are fixating on the flaws? Let's go back to the peacock. When you have caught yourself fixating on the talons, and learn to cultivate that sense of presence so that you can begin to speak to yourself in a much softer, more appreciative way. Because the reality of our mind, as you know, is that it is tasked with a very important thing. So put your hand on your body somewhere, your hand on your head, your hand on your heart, give yourself a squeeze and give your body some love and say, thank you, body, for getting me here. Thank you, nervous system, for allowing me to have this experience. Thank you for doing your job, because that's its job, is survival. And so, of course, it's going to fixate on potential problems, potential things that might cause you to be scared or frightened. Maybe it fixates on the negative aspects because it doesn't want things repeated. And so, how can we begin to look at yourself through the lens of perspective, a wider lens, a bird's eye view, if you will, and begin to look at your life as this journey that you've been on, but that periodically we want to pause and we want to drop into your current location so that you can have that location services, right? You're familiar with that with your GPS. You turn on your location services if you want to go somewhere you haven't been before, but we need to know where we're at. And in order to really honor and reflect the journey that you've had, it's important to periodically look back, right? Peruse through the time capsule that is your life and recognize all of the versions of you that you've been along the way that are helping you in this moment now, and honor them and celebrate them. Because yes, there's going to be ones that you're like, yeah, that version of me is amazing and I learned so much and I'm going to keep going. And there's other versions of ourselves that maybe we recognize that that isn't necessarily how you want to be living now. Like, we honor and love all of these parts of ourselves, but we get to really acknowledge that there's so many different threads that are woven together into the version of you that you are right now. And so taking a look back from a really kind and compassionate perspective so that you have that, so you're able to reflect back. And when you catch yourself in those moments of fixation or struggle or self-doubt or self-critique, we want to pause, place your hand on your heart and your body and breathe to create safety, right? Because when we're in that state of anxiety or fear, it's a state of dysregulation. And so we just acknowledge that we are, hopefully, in this moment now, safe. And hopefully in that moment, whatever, this metaphorical future moment, you're safe too. But really just use that ability to pause and reconnect to the present moment to cultivate safety, because change happens at the speed of safety. And in order for us to continue on the journey to get to where you want to go, we cultivate acceptance and appreciation for where we're at now. And that's so important, because we can't call in more if we're resisting what is. And I will tell you, hand to heart, that I spent a lot of time resisting what was, feeling like I should be further ahead, feeling like I could be doing more, and all of those things that come from the voice of the ego mind, of the saboteurs that are pushing us to try to do more and better and faster and work harder, and all of those things that are not your true voice and are the things that are really perpetrating the cycles of frustration, right? And so that's where we start to, if we keep doing the same things over and over, we're going to get the same outcome, right? And if we keep placing our focus on the same things, then we're going to recreate the same things over and over. But the beautiful thing about life is that we can always take these moments to pause and decide to begin a new chapter right from here, right? Begin to tell a new story. What version of yourself are you going to go into the rest of today as? How can you acknowledge the growth? How can you acknowledge all of the beautiful wisdom that you've accumulated along the way, along your warrior's journey, right? Because that's really what life is. And that's how we can begin to look at this, is a journey of evolution and expansion and growth and possibility, and know that you are the author of that story. And that so much of what you create, and some people say all of what you create, is impacted and influenced and generated by your inner state. And so if we are in a state of resistance with ourselves, if we're focused on the faults and the flaws, if we're just obsessed about the things that we don't like and that we're worried about and all of that, and we're not giving space for compassion and love and creativity and joy and playfulness and regulation, then is it any wonder that we just see the same patterns over and over? So my invitation for you is to pause. And at this time, we're just a couple days out from going into May, which is crazy. That's like 5 months into 2024, and we're almost halfway through the year. So why not take this opportunity to do some reflection, right? A lot of people, myself included, we do a big New Year's thing. I mean, I'm a New Year's baby, so of course, but why not take this opportunity and look back at the goals that you set or the intentions that you set at the beginning of the year and just have a little touch point, right? Give yourself a little progress report and see how you're doing. But remember to do it from the love, do it from the love, do it from the love of the heart, do it through the lens of the heart. And so remember that when you are looking back and you're reflecting, I want you to remember who you're talking to when you give this progress report, who you're talking to and how you're speaking to them. Because we get to remember that the things that we've gone through, yes, we had a role in them. Not always were they completely our doing. Things happened in our life that, as a child or what have you, things happened, right? And so it's at this point, we have a responsibility to learn from them, grow from them, and move forward. And our part of our responsibility is to learn to really deeply cherish and love and respect ourselves, because you simply deserve that. As a human being on this planet, you are innately worthy, innately valuable. Although our mind, our saboteurs will tell us we have to do and be and have more to achieve and warrant that. It's not true. It's not true. We all have this divine worthiness and these divine gifts. And so the real gift is learning to cultivate self-compassion, a non-judgmental self-awareness, and learning to speak to ourselves through a softer, more gentle voice. Learn to catch yourself when you're fixated in the struggle, in the cycles, in the anxiety, wherever. Catch yourself and hold your body, create safety, right? So hands on your body, or maybe shaking or breathing or whatever that is. Firstly, create safety, and then begin to speak to yourself. Speak to yourself in a kind and gentle voice. And trust me when I say this is a work in progress for me too, because as much as I am here to share this with you, I'm practicing this myself, and we teach what we need to learn. And this is something that I am definitely still practicing, and I'm learning it, and I'm getting stronger, and everything is a practice. But how can we begin to speak to ourselves so that you are speaking to that little version of you inside of you, that version of you, of your inner child, that in the moment needs some sort of affirmation or support or love or trust or presence or witnessing. And so that's really what it is that we get to reparent ourselves. We get to give ourselves what we need in this current moment, but it's also really it's healing the timeline, because very likely there's been a similar situation in the past that you didn't necessarily get one of those things, of those core needs of acceptance and support and love and praise and trust. And so now you get to hold yourself and give yourself that. You get to turn towards yourself internally, or turn towards yourself in the mirror if you want, if that feels good to you, and speak those kind loving words. Speak in that gentle voice. Speak like you would speak to a small, wounded, tired, fragile child, because there's many versions of you that exist within you. There's not just one inner child, there's many that had these moments that they didn't get necessarily what they needed, and that get healed now in this present moment. Otherwise, they're going to continue to express themselves seeking that love or that presence or those affirmations. And so how can you begin to really take a step back, be gentle, take a moment, take a beat, take a pause, hands on your body, breathe, catch yourself in it. Oh, there I go again. And like the Peacock teaches us, to just witness it and have some levity, have some laugh around it, and then give yourself what you need, and truly remember that you are innately divine, innately beautiful, innately gifted, innately magical, and all of those things. And so I will give you one last tool that really is the core essence of the mental fitness practice that really helps with this. And it is to get a photo of yourself when you were a young child, if you have that available to you. And ideally under the age of 7, because our brain is still forming until about that age. And so under the age of 7, that feels like it really captures your true essence, and you can really see that sparkle in your eye. And that's the unchanging essence that is still present within you. And when you catch yourself in that cycle of driving yourself, critiquing yourself, doubting yourself, whatever it is, speaking harshly to yourself, go to that photo and see if you can continue to do that. Because I find, at least, I cannot speak to that version of myself that same way. But yet in our head, if we keep it there, these automatic negative thoughts that keep going and over and over and over, they keep running the show, right? But if we get it out and we recognize when we try to say it to that version of ourselves, it's different. You can write it down. That will give you some more clarity on it. But having that photo of that younger version of yourself. So for those of you watching the video, you'll be able to see this very sweet little bunny rabbit version of me. And for those of you that are just listening to the audio, I'm going to tell you it's really cute. It's me. My mom said I was 5 years old. I'm dressed like a bunny rabbit. I'm wearing pink pajamas and a white hat with pink ears, and I have whiskers on my face. Cute. I still got those dimples. But that's the version of me. I keep her on the fridge and I talk to her every day because she's still in charge. She's in charge. There's a wise, curious, playful version of you inside of you. And there's also a sage, a grounded and expansive version of you that's equally, if not more so, wise and elegant and graceful. So that playful, curious, and then the wise sage, they both exist within you. Many of you exist within you. And so really just honoring where you're at right now and really making that intentional decision of, when you catch yourself in these patterns, or when you have an opportunity to reflect, just to really celebrate how far you've come, where you're at, love and celebrate, and give yourself that sense of appreciation and joyfulness, and really be intentional, because that negative self-talk it's real, and our brains run on autopilot. But learning to catch yourself in these automatic negative thought spirals, being able to witness the way you're speaking to yourself, being able to take some time. I spend some time every day with that younger child photo, and just, have that on your fridge or maybe on your desk, and take some time with that version of you every day just to look and celebrate it and even say, look, little one, look how far we've come. This is what's happening right now. And it's a dialogue, because when you are giving yourself this love and this celebration, you're giving that younger version of yourself. I believe that it's your higher self that's also simultaneously giving you the love that you need, the current version of you as well. So everything is connected. It's all these different expressions of you. Hopefully I haven't lost you and that still makes sense. But that's what I wanted to share. There's many versions of you, and they are all magical. They are all worthy. They are all deserving. They are all enough. And when we can learn to love and celebrate ourselves, even just a little bit and more over time, it really does change how you feel and how you show up. And as you create that sense of centeredness, this calm awareness within you, this calm knowing that you can really be in a place of groundedness where you're at, and create safety around everything that you have in this current moment, of everything that you're attracting into your life and the opportunities, then you begin to allow that to expand, right? Because then we're allowing that to be who you are now, how you are now. And so that you create space for more opportunities, more joy, more love, right? Because if we're just constantly in that perpetrating cycle of self-defeat and self-doubt and self-criticism, it really creates more dysregulation. It contracts us at a deep level of the nervous system. It closes you off energetically. It lowers your frequency into a lower frequency, lower vibrational emotional state, which is associated with every major chronic disease and stress and illness and problems, not to mention challenges with manifestation and attraction, and just feeling like poop, and probably having trouble pooping because constipation. Anyways, getting sidetracked. Finish the episode, Megan. So that's what I wanted to share. How can you learn to cultivate that level of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and ultimately self-love? I hope you can hear the roosters that are crowing in the backyard, because that's one of the things that was really quite funny and that I didn't even really touch on, did I? I don't think I did. Oh, yeah. But anyways, that's one of the things that the universe sent me a really interesting way to go deeper with all of these lessons. And that was a few years ago when I accidentally adopted a Hawaiian rooster named Chirpy. I called him Chirpy. And so there's other episodes where I talked about that, but he really came into my life when I was having a rough go, when I hit rock bottom and I was exhausted and depleted and burnt out. And, him and his family, his mom and his little siblings, came into the yard, chirp, 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 chirp. And I ended up caring for him because I'm a compassionate human and I didn't want these chickens to be in the backyard, after the mom disappeared. And so I started to care for these birds, even though I was terrified. And so it was an interesting lesson from the universe of how can we begin to witness the beauty and the magic that creatures have, that all of these creatures have. And as I started to watch him and subsequently, as he taught me all about morning routines, because that's what roosters do, he really began to show me just through his presence that there's so much more. There's so much more. And I saw his beauty and I saw his badassery and I saw everything about him beyond just the beaks and the talons. Don't get me wrong. He had some mean talons and I never got anywhere near him after he got bigger than my hand. I did touch him once, but that was when he was a tiny little floof. But what I'm asking you to do is to treat yourself with that same loving, compassionate curiosity that you so easily give to other beings and creatures, right? You probably do that well with your dog or your cat or your kid or your partner, but yet it can be challenging for us to do that for ourselves. But how can you begin to witness all of these beautiful components of you so that you are really leaning into that full expression of the full majesty, of the full creativity, of the full opportunity that you have to be in full celebration of who and how you are, and really live into that vibrancy every day. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn how to use your mind like the powerful tool that it is, to keep your body strong and healthy so that you can show up on purpose as the purposeful powerhouse that you are. And until next time, take good care. If you have questions or anything, let me know. And thank you so much for being part of this beautiful community. And thank you for singing that beautiful song of yours and going out there and shaking those little tail feathers of yours, because you are a magical, beautiful creature. And I am honored to be able to be part of your journey. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.